Hi, I'm Mike Patrick from Six Ridges Grotto, and we're going to talk a little bit about the gear that's necessary for vertical caving. In fact, we're out at a vertical cave now getting ready to bounce this pit. Just want to go over a couple of the different types of descending devices that are in use. This is called a figure 8, and it's one of the most common types of descenders. It's really not the best of things for deep pits, but it works well for anything 100 feet or less, let's say. It does have a tendency to kind of kink the rope up, make it twist, which a lot of rope owners like myself don't particularly like. So you may find some people love it, others may look at you strange when you start to use it, like they don't want that on their rope. Basically, the way this descender works, this is a Sport 8. Now they have a larger version that has ears on it that come out. That's a Rescue 8. But you push a bight of rope, you take the rope, you bend it in half, it's called a bight, you push it through the larger part of the figure 8, then you loop that over like this, and then your carabiner would clip right into here and go to your harness. So from this point you'd be able to descend down. Again, the problem with it is that it does twist the rope up, and especially on longer pits it doesn't have variable friction. So once you start going, you have basically one tension level. That's it with this. You can't adjust it. When you first start on a long drop, all the weight of the rope pulling down on you tends to create a belay effect, and with the belay effect it can actually stop your descent. Well, with a device like this, if there's a lot of weight hanging, that's a lot of pull below you from the weight of the rope, and it can be very hard to move. You sometimes actually have to feed it. Feeding it is where, as you're going down, you're kind of pushing a bight of rope into the loop so that it slides through. Okay. The problem with that is the last thing in the world you want to be doing is moving your brake hand, which is the hand behind you. You don't want to be moving it up. That could create too much loop in the rope to where you're going to move faster than you mean to. So really not a good idea to do that. Now this is called an ATC. You'll find almost no cavers use this for a pretty good reason. It's not the best of device for caving. With it, if you notice in the bottom of it, there's two holes. You push a bight of rope, and when you're using caving rope, it's really hard to get through there. You put that through and you clip your carabiner through here, and then it works just like the figure 8. Again, there's no control of the descent. It's a one-size-fits-all speed control, and it puts quite a bend in the rope. Again, not something I'd prefer. Now this is a device you'll find cavers either love it or hate it. This is called a micro rack. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my full-size rack today to show you what that is, but a full-size rack is basically kind of like a J shape. It comes up and down, little clip here. The way this device works, you push a bight of rope in, and you see these bars will flip around. You flip it in like this and put it underneath the bar. Then you slide this one over. You push another bight of rope in, clip this in. Your carabiner clips down here at the bottom and goes to your harness, and then you're ready to go. The nice thing about a device like this is it's easy to lock it off. To lock it, you can bring the rope up and over these bars. And if you want to get a real lock, you push the loop through here, bring it up and over, and now you're locked off. If you were descending, you're pretty well going to stay where you're at. If you feel real paranoid, you can bring this up, tie a knot around this, and clip it with a carabiner. You're not going anywhere. Okay. To return to descending again, you keep your brake, or you keep your guide hand here on the descender. You bring your brake hand up. You real slowly bring this off, and then you're ready to start descending again. Now when you're descending with a device like this, it's a good idea to keep your hands, naturally you want to be wearing gloves while you're doing it, but you want to keep your hands holding these bars. Call me paranoid, but I like to be able to adjust the bars, but also like to hold the bars to where they're not coming open. Reality is they can't unless you rig it backwards. Some people do that. That's why you should use a quick attach safety before you go over the edge, to make sure that you have got everything rigged properly, and I'll show you that in a few moments. Now if I back up here, these bars only open in one direction. Let's say someone's a newbie and they rig this the wrong direction. If you notice, this little bar here has like a little cutout. Okay, that little cutout rolls over and latches in to the bars. It won't go any further, so it locks in place. If you were to accidentally rig this the wrong direction and have these hyper bars, in this case on the left side instead of my right, you feed your biter rope in. Oh, it's already come off. Some of these are tight enough that I've seen people be able to rig them improperly and manage to get to the edge before someone catches it. You definitely don't want to have that happening. It's a quick way to die, as well as a good way to get ribbed for the rest of your life by the rest of your grotto. Now, if you notice, this at first glance looks like it's supposed to, except any tug on these and it can come right off the rope. Meaning that you step over the edge, you start to descend, your weight goes on it, and all of a sudden nothing is holding you to the rope anymore, and nothing is holding you above ground. So you want to be really certain that you've rigged it properly. When you're rigging, you push your biter rope in, check these bars, stop and look at it and make sure, okay, if I pull on this, that's going to pull the bar closed, okay? And then you rig the next one. Same thing again, you're going to look really close. Make sure, yep, when I put my weight on there, that's going to pull it tight, okay? So if you'll follow those basic rules, that's going to help you quite a bit. Now, looking at some of the other gear that we use in vertical caving, this is a combination of a cow's tail with a foot strap. It's a little tangled up here. Basically, this part here is called the cow's tail. You'll notice it has a butterfly knot in the center. This is usually done with dynamic rope because your cow's tail, if you were to slip and fall, could need to absorb a fall. So it's usually a dynamic rope because it's got a little bit more stretch. Now when we say a little bit of stretch, you're not going to see any stretch by pulling on it, but it will elongate a little bit more than static rope will. Okay. On one end, you'll notice I've got a carabiner. In this case, I have a non-locking biner because typically the short cow's tail, and you notice this end is shorter than this end, the short cow's tail really is there to do like crossing rebelays and things like that, where you just need to get a quick attach onto something as a safety, and it's just there for a few moments, and you want something you can clip on quickly if you were in trouble. Some people like to use locking ones there. That's certainly fine. I've found that if I have to unscrew it because it's screwed in too far, it takes me a little longer, and I kind of like being able to clip in real fast if I'm nervous or worried about something. Now you'll notice the other end of my cow's tail is tied into an upper ascender. Okay, now this is an ascender that will grip onto the rope and hold it, so as it slides up the rope it will not come back down. I like mine tied in because when you're frogging and you're doing vertical ascending, your croll is going to be sliding up, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It's going to slide up, and when it does, all these carabiners tend to clang together, and makes a lot of noise, and it's quite annoying and a little distracting as I'm going up. I don't like the sound of something hitting, so I've kind of quit doing that. So I just tied mine in with basically like a grapevine knot here. Okay. In our knot section, we'll talk about some of these knots and how to tie them. Now you'll notice there's a strap coming off the ascender. This one has 2 foot loops, one for each foot. Sometimes you'll see these with a single loop that you put both feet in. I kind of like the double one. It's still fairly easy to slip a foot out of this and climb and ascend, but I kind of like being able to put both feet in and distribute my weight. So that's my preference. Some people again use a single loop. You want to basically make sure that you put this into here, and when you stand up you want to come up at least to your waist or a little better. That's the way you measure that out. And the center butterfly knot here will go into the harness, and I'll show you where that goes in a few moments. Now, this device here is called a croll. there are different types. This one's made by Petzl. The Kroll will ride about your midsection or just above your waist, and that's going to be your second ascender. When you're ascending rope, you want at least 2 points of contact. 3 is better, at least 2 points of contact on rope, so if any one of your ascenders fails, you do have another ascender to back you up. This strap that's through here is actually what will go over my shoulders and attach to my harness to keep it pulled up. Some people use neck straps that go around their neck. That's okay. It's not my preference. I like the one that goes back to my harness. It's just a comfort thing for me. Basically, you pull this little handle down and over, it locks it open. There are little teeth right here on the ascender, and these are what grab the rope to keep it from going back down. So this thing only moves in an upward direction, and that's it. You hope it never moves downward, unless you're trying to do a thumb down where you're descending the rope because maybe you got to go back down for something a couple feet, or you need to take a little slack off the rope to do a maneuver. Other than that, these should only go up. So in a few moments I'll show you how to put this on. Naturally, you want to make sure you've got your helmet. A caving helmet is best, but at least some sort of helmet to protect your head. And you definitely want one of these, a harness. Now this harness is basically geared up for frog systems. If you're not familiar with it, frog is just a system of ascending. There are different types. There's rope walker, there's a Mitchell, there's frog, there's variations. Today we're going to be talking about the frog. The frog is great anytime you're in fairly short caves, or if you've got to be against the walls you're ascending. The frog is just typically easier. Rope walker is really nice if you're in a very deep cave or you've got a lot of free hang where you're not touching anything. The rope walker is much faster, but it does take quite a bit longer to put on and get geared up. When you're looking at this harness, one of the things that is important about this, now if you're going to be doing frogging, there are some types of harnesses that are much better than others. This one is really good for things like frogging because the attachment points are fairly low. Now this is a steel malleon that goes in and clips into the other side. The Kroll will go through here, and we'll talk about what order those things go in. It's very important you get the sequence right so your gear is just easy to get to. In frogging, whenever we descend into the cave, we're typically already wearing our frog gear because it's just easy to put that on. If you have any sort of problem in descending, you can do what's called a changeover and come right back up. So really good idea to have that. So some people go out and buy different types of harnesses, like climbing harnesses or sport rappel harnesses. Then they find that it's difficult to attach the Kroll, and then it usually sits too high, which leads to inefficiency. So my recommendation is check with your grotto, get the right kind of harness to start with because it costs about the same, but it'll make your life a lot easier.